cinemaologists. There have been a number of Hang on. Much better. There have been a number of films throughout the years that could be considered cult films, or so bad it's good, or sometimes even guilty pleasures. But today's film, however, I would argue is only one of these, but much, much more. 1968's Danger Diabolik, or just Diabolik for its Italian release, is a pop art cult comic book movie, the best of its kind, and here's why. 1968 was a phenomenal year for movies. The changing sentiments in cinema, along with the radical cultural movements, crackled together in an eruption of movies unlike that which had come before. These were often rough, brilliant, stylish, violent, trippy, and sleazy. There was more popular culture in these films, and especially their soundtracks. One could say that these were pop art cinema, akin to the pop art movement in painting and sculpture abundant at the time, and made famous by artists like Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol. However, if any movie made in that stellar year could be called a pop art film, Danger Diabolik is it. It was directed by Mario Bava, legendary low-budget Italian director known for such impressive economical productions as Planet of the Vampires and Black Sabbath, who was hired on to direct the picture by Dino De Laurentiis, who many consider the greatest film producer of all time. Initially, Bava was offered $3 million to shoot the film. However, he rejected this sum and said he could shoot the film for only $500,000. And that's just what he did. Bava utilized every trick of cinematic sleight of hand at his disposal to create an opulent-looking production. Things such as forced perspective, hanging miniatures, enhanced the size and scale of the sets, especially in Diabolik's fantastic lair. If the film's larger-than-life imagery and characters seem ripped right out of a comic book, that's because Diabolik is based on an incredibly popular Italian comic book or fumetti series of the same name, published in small paperback volumes like the trade paperbacks we have today. Mario Bava created with this film the greatest adaptation of a comic book ever made. Every shot, the angles, the colors, the framing, could be turned into a comic panel and given word balloons. Such as this shot, which involves a mirror superimposing Diabolik and his sidekick/lover Ava over the shot of a castle. Even more overt is this scene in which the gangster Valmont uses a special machine to figure out the appearance of Diabolik's girl. This sequence uses incredibly stylized animation which morphs between several faces, some of which are taken out of the Barbarella comics. Helping the comic book aesthetic is the brightly colored sets and costumes, especially Ava's assortment of clothing that play out like a 60s fashion show.
What's your price?
An emerald necklace.
Also, let's not forget the dialogue, which is one of the most comic book-like things about the movie.
I told you I'd cross your name off the human register. Liar!
It's interesting to note that all of the art forms to emerge in the 20th century, from comic books to video games, the imagery of comic books can translate better to movies because it is movies that have influenced comic books throughout aspects of cinematography, camera angles, and movement. An equivalent of this today would be Sin City, however the difference being that that film brings movies into the realm of comics, whereas Diabolik brings comics into the realm of movies. The cast was made up of several quite famous character actors. There was Jean-Philippe Law as Diabolik, who had been in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and the same year had been in Barbarella. Law is perfectly agile and expressive for the action-oriented Diabolik's movements. Marissa Mell plays Ava, who remains mostly eye candy for Diabolik and the audience, but does bring a little extra to her performance. Then there's Michel Piccoli as Jenko. Piccoli is probably best known for being in Jean-Luc Godard's classic Contempt. Terry Thomas, famous British character actor for things like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, The Abominable Dr. Phibes, and Disney's Robin Hood, is very funny as the Prime Minister. Adolfo Celli of Thunderball fame plays the sleazy but somewhat charming crime boss Valmont.
Here's a banana! Pig!
Hey, boss, you shouldn't call me names.
All of the performances are over the top, as they should be for such material, and yet they give it their all. The movie's plot concerns various exploits of Diabolik as he steals and plunders, with Inspector Jenko hot on his trail. On the surface, this seems like a pretty formulaic thief-comes-to-justice setup. However, there are several things that make Danger Diabolik special. Firstly, the world in which Diabolik lives is one that seems slightly off. Firstly, the scene in the nightclub and the presence of the crime bosses gives the impression of a world or country that is overrun with corruption. In fact, Diabolik's only supposedly unselfish deed is when he destroys the tax offices, a move which seems slightly Robin Hood-like. Of course, there's the indelible image of Diabolik trapped after being covered in molten gold, something which adds a monumental or mythic quality to his character. Though it might seem like an essential comeuppance, Diabolik winks to Ava and the audience, proving that we really didn't want him to go. This kind of emphasis on the antihero was all the rage at this time in film history, as it was a reflection of the general unrest and mistrust of the establishment. One element that has become a character in and of itself is the psychedelic score by Maestro Ennio Morricone. A lot of people may just remember him for his spaghetti western scores, but Morricone was originally an experimenter in the avant-garde, which was why he made such seminal soundtracks for the latter. In Diabolik, the music is funky, weird, lusty, otherworldly, eerie, and experimental. Yet above all, it's eternally memorable, and loved by many film fans and soundtrack aficionados. Although one bit of unfortunate trivia is that there's never been a legitimate soundtrack release because apparently the multi-track masters are lost, and in some cases people say even the mono masters are lost, making this a sort of legendary film score. In a way though, its unavailability makes people appreciate it all the more. However, this movie has not been condemned to obscurity. It has a large fan following and has influenced many things, from Austin Powers to the Beastie Boys. Unfortunately, the movie has gained a reputation to some as being a so bad it's good movie, or something to be enjoyed ironically. This is mostly due to Mystery Science Theater 3000, which, for its final episode, riffed Diabolik.
Occasionally a spelunker just wanders in. Hey, what the hell?
Granted, a lot of said riff is very funny, but those who had not heard of the film before would probably just go along in assuming it's a bad movie, not worth seeing on its own. I wouldn't even say it's a guilty pleasure, because that would mean I'd feel slightly bad for watching it, which isn't true at all. In this cynical age of moviegoing, it's hard to see movies like this as anything other than a comedy, even though it's a tongue-in-cheek movie. But it is important to look at Diabolik and movies like it in the zeitgeist, or the spirit of the times. It can get campy, it can get silly, but it is often exhilarating. Speaking of that, one might be reminded of the camp in the Batman TV show in the scene where Diabolik uses exhilaration gas, countered by himself and Ava with anti-exhilaration gas capsules. However, Danger Diabolik has a sister film. Released the same year, Barbarella, directed by Roger Vadim, was also a Dino De Laurentiis production. Though also based on a comic book as well, Barbarella's cinematography is very much straightforward and nothing special. The film's sole merits are with Terry Southern's script,
This was really much too poetic a way to die.
as well as the design and look of the film, which is wonderful. The great fuzz guitar-laden music, and let's face it, Jane Fonda herself.
Could you hand me a garment?
However, the movie falls short when it comes to being a comic book adaptation in the staging of its shots, but that's only to judge it on those aspects. One last point of interest, the relationship between Diabolik and Ava is an interesting one. There are several things throughout that hint that it's more than superficial. Ava and Diabolik seem to like one another very much, beyond the physical. Diabolik goes to ridiculous risk to get Ava the emeralds that she wants. One wonders about Ava's past and her devotion to Diabolik in the scene where she must leave him.
I'll wait for you. I'm not going alone.
Eva, you'll not be alone while I live. Now go.
After Diabolik is covered in gold, Ava shows up to say that she loves him.
I love you.
It's a pretty special movie, one filmed with memorable moments and groovy sights and sounds. I also imagine Jaguar E-Type sales soared when the film came out. This is Alex Latanzi of The Cinemologist saying, keep watching.
Every minute of the daytime I might, and every moment of the night.
Oh, you smell like a tire store.